welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be talking about how to draw a rabbit. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So, let's get arting. Alright, so here is the rabbit. I'm gonna get started. So if you're trying to draw it, it's like a little bit of a circle. Obviously there's some circularness shaved off on the sides here. And then the ears come up in kind of an ovular shape. Rabbits are, you can also kind of choose your own color scheme. So I've gone with like a tan. I'm probably going to add some white in there too, but you can, choose whatever. So we're just going to get started here, right? So middle, we're just going to kind of come up. And then on the sides, we're going to angle for the corner of the eye. Right, so middle coming up, and then we're kind of adjusting from there, and then, you loop beyond that. So you go to the corner of the eye, you're going to loop up at the eye, being careful not to draw over the eye, because eyes are something we all kind of look at. It's one of the first things we look at because, it's just what we do. And then as we loop under the eye, we're going to angle our strokes down, right? All kind of making sense with each other. And then we'll bring it kind of out. All right, so down here we have the looping down, coming off the eye, and then under here, you just sort of meet in the middle. Hair can be a little scraggly, can be short, rabbits, you can have sort of longer hair, shorter hair. And then just bring it out. I'm probably going to add some white. I think that would add, otherwise it's just going to be a whole lot of brown rabbit. Alright, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit. I'm just deciding on where the white should be. I can probably have some white. The white's going to be underneath, but exactly where I'm going to cut that off. And you can see I'm bringing the stroke straight back. And then this would just come right straight up. So then on the other side, you'd do the opposite. You'd angle it out, right? You'd have the corner here going for the corner of that eye. Then you'd loop it up. And down here you'd loop it down. And every adjustment in between. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this down a little bit further. Maybe to here. And we'll have white kicking in. Like right on the cheek there, and then just underneath as well. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to get all of this brown in, this tan, and I will be right back. I'll pop over to the white real fast, and just, kind of do the same thing, right? Now we're just down here. As you come down, on the cheeks, the hair actually turns in at each other on the inside here, because of the nature of the direction of how it's coming off the nose. Otherwise, you just have it coming straight off until it balances with everything. Right? You can see we just blend it right in. Alright, so I'm going to get all of the white in, and I'll be right back. Now, I did leave a little bit of space to do a little bit of the nose. Whether you'd actually be able to see it, debatable. Probably not. But, we'll have a little bit of the nose peeking out here. Just right there. Nothing big. It'll make more sense once we add shadows and highlights. Okay, that's a good start. So we're going to start with the tan for the, oh, if I can hit it right, highlights and shadows. I'm going to have the highlights coming from above and to the right. As always, that means above and in front of, not behind or next to. But all edges are in shadow, right? So, you know, that's very backed off, light, light, light pin pressure. And just sort of filling that in. Now, to brighten it up, you can add more pin pressure or more lines. So it is very easy to take shadow into highlight. It's a lot harder with this style to undo highlight. So now on this side, the shadow is going to be deeper, right? So we're going to make it deeper. Now, probably not this deep, but it'll give myself a little bit of a runway. It'll allow me to blend it in better, because it's got such, you know, cute sort of wide face here, and it's certainly turned. It's a prey animal, so, you know, their eye is turned, but I'll often put like a burst of light under the eye, and this is wide enough. I have a feeling that their face would naturally be picking up a little bit more than what I'm giving it, but at the very least, we can make some adjustments on that a little later. Right, so we get all of that in, and then even the top here, right, still turned away from the light source, so you still have some shadowing that's going to happen. And rabbits, you know, their ears are kind of behind, so there typically is a ledge depending on what direction their head's kind of turned between the head and the ear itself. You don't have to necessarily follow that, but just something to keep in mind. So like on this side, I could opt to do this all in shadow, or I could connect it. I'm going to play that by ear and see how it looks. So for now, I'm going to add the shadow in, and then, and then behind the eye. Boy, did I miss that completely. And the eye, again, just being very careful. You can overrun an eye with hair, but not if the hair is going the opposite direction, which is what's happening here. Okay. So if I am any place where I'm going to connect highlight into shadow, what I'm going to do is add more lines, not more pin pressure, right? So in this area, I'm just going to add more lines. And you can see it's just that backed off pin pressure. See how quick this brightens up. Right? You start off with that backed off pin pressure and just keep adding lines, and it brightens it right up. The reason for that is when I put less pin pressure, my brush is thinner, which makes it easier to blend into the thin brush strokes that I have for the shadow. Whereas when I do full pin pressure, right, if I come here and do that full pin pressure, my brush becomes a lot thicker, and it makes it a lot harder to blend. So I'll do this to blend it, and then, you know, I'm back at this point, so now I would do full pin pressure. And just make sure that this has enough lines to be as bright as my full pin pressure, right? It's just a matter of adding more lines and you got it. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of this in highlight, and I will be right back. Alright, so we're going to get the white in, and then we'll get to the ears. But same kind of thing, right? You know, under here you still have the shadow. All edges would be in shadow, and that includes the edge of the cheek, right, before it connects in with the face. And then underneath. And as it rounds this way, this would be going into shadow. Where the, you know, it's the cheeks on an animal, they're rounded. So that point, think of them like a ball, basically. So that would still apply the way you would shadow that, and the back side would have shadowing because it's dipping down in a way. So, let's see. There's going to be some shadowing here, but what I'm going to do is get the rest of the shadowing in. So I'm going to get this in. I'm going to shadow the entire bottom section, and there will be some highlights, but it'll be easier to do once I shadow it. And then I'm going to shadow this entire side, and then I'll come back to add the highlights in. So I will be right back. Okay, now, just like before, right here, to connect that in, it's going to be more lines, not more pin pressure, to sort of taper it in to highlight. And then I'm going to add a little bit more shadowing just along the front, because there'll be a spot where it changes over, and it'll change over before this, or after this, but okay. So then as we bring it over, same thing, I'm going to taper off my pin pressure and use just the lines to help bolster it up as I get closer. And then, you know, down here, you know, once you've already shadowed something, you can just use more lines, so I don't need to do more pin pressure down here. It's really quick to then bolster up, and you want it kind of in the middle, because the top, the cheeks are casting a shadow on the chin. And then, of course, the bottom was rounding away into shadow, so there's not a lot of space. That's why I tend to shadow it first. Right, we'll do a little bit. So you're going to have that highlight until the middle of the chin. Usually at this point I start tapering it off, but still give it a little bit. So we'll still give it a little bit. Bulk, not that heavy. Bulk of the highlight on the chin is going to be on the right side, though. And then just sort of blend it into what's going on down here, right? And we can do kind of the same over here. Blend the white in by pushing it into another color. It does help blend the colors together better. Okay, and then here, right, same thing. I don't need to add more pin pressure, I just need to add more lines. This would push more towards the center because now you have this section that's rounding out. Bottom is still in shadow. Right, just add more lines until it kind of looks right, because you'd have the nose isn't really big enough to be blocking. And you would still have a shadow on that back side. Right, but otherwise, just sort of filling it in and connecting it back up into the tan, and once again pushing the white past. That's how you can blend the color. So it's easier this way to blend the colors, just takes a little longer to do when you add a full shadow. It's quicker to just jump into it, but easier to add the shadow first. Right. And then you have kind of a nice rounded shadow happening. I'm just going to fix a few spots, and then I have to do the right side, because we don't want it to look like it's waving, like up and down like it was. Okay, and then over here, you know, continuing that, more lines to blend it, and then we'll have the ears. Ooh, that was a little overzealous. That's all right. One little stripe coming down overzealously, won't kill everything. Alright, and then we can increase our pin pressure once we're away. And then like before, I can push the white into the tan, and that'll blend the colors together. Some animals have a very crystal clear like transition from one color to another. Some don't. And it's kind of, it's up to you whether you want to tape it or not. Again, depends on the animal though. Right, so I can push this if I wanted to. And it'll just sort of help make the colors look like they're just gently changing from one color to another. Same here. I'm just going to take light pin pressure and overlay it. To do this, I typically take a lighter color onto a darker color. So it doesn't have to be white. You could do this with like a gray or a brown or any color really, as long as the lighter is on top of the darker. Right, and by doing that, we kind of blend it in together. And there's no clear like, oh, this is white and this is tan. It all just kind of looks like it's the same. Okay, so now for the ears, we'll be adding whiskers onto it as well. Onto the rabbit, not on the ears. Do need to see here. So there's not a lot of space, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is do both ears in shadow, and I'll be right back. Now we're going to add some highlights. I was going to say in shadows, but I've already added the shadows. Okay, so on this side, the highlight is going to be more on the right. And just like before, right, I did the whole thing in shadow, so I just have to add more strokes. And then the back side of the ear is going to be in shadow because it's turning away from the light source. But we can pull that light source all the way down. Right, so this whole front with a small gap can be highlight, and then we're going to taper that in, blend it to the rest of the ear as the ear kind of rotates in a way. Okay, and then on this side, right underneath here, shadow. So then the highlight's actually going to be on the upper side of the ear there, because of how it's angled and turned. Right, and then just blending it in. It's easy to do because we're just using that light pin pressure. No thick, heavy, hard stroke. And blend it all the way into the head. There's still going to be some amount of like shadowing, like you can still see the difference, but you'll push the highlight all the way down. And then as we get down in here, it goes back into shadow, right? So that's one side. This side's kind of the opposite of that in that the back side is in highlight, although all edges go in shadow, right? So not fully the back side, but close enough. And then what's going to turn into shadow is going to be this side. And really, because of how it's angled, you're not going to have too much of a shadow there. Right, so we have the edge we'll avoid as we bring this up, and then making sure we're tapering all the way over. Ish. I'm going to bring this all the way up into here. I didn't with the other side, but I could there as well, although the white fluff we'll see how that looks once we do it. Alright, okay, and then this little section here is going to be more on the inner side, right on the right side of it, than on the left where that's going back into shadow. Now, depending on how deep the head goes or how far down the ears are would change how much shadow they're casting on the ear itself. So, you know, if their ears came really far down, obviously the head would be in the way. You'd have some shadowing, and there is a gap here. Over here, we're pushing the highlight all the way in. Over here, not as much. We were at the top. We're not at the bottom. Okay. I'm going to add some white fluff. So going back to white here. White fluff is pretty easy to draw. It's just kind of like I'm doing light pin pressure here, but you know, little squiggle lines. It doesn't have to be straight or even. You know, it's the benefit of kind of this ear fluff is it's tends to be a little bit more wild and free. And so we'll have this come up and on the other side, right? So on this side, same thing. And same kind of style, you're just kind of doing those squiggles as it comes up. We can have it pushing in more than I am, if I wanted to. So one side, and then we'll do the other, same thing, right? Start down where there's a gap, right? So there's gaps down here, I'll have some of that white fluff come in. And then otherwise just kind of, you know, squiggle it out. With, again, this light pin pressure, because we'll be adding highlights to it. So I'm going to finish getting out the ear fluff on this ear, and I'll be right back. Sorry, my words failed me there. Add a little bit of highlighting. So here, that would be on the tips of the hair, and then fading off as it went into the, you know, neverland of the ear. Still kind of squiggling it in the same kind of way, but also using light brush strokes. So I'm building this up slowly, where it's disappearing into the ear, backing off that pin pressure, and letting it go. Right, not pushing it all the way down. And then over here, you would have some kind of in the middle, maybe approaching the edge. Depending on how the hair is, it could just be because it's longer hair, you know, you certainly have that possibility. But it would still be disappearing into the ear, so. One side, and then over here, it's more towards the middle, right? Not the hair tips. Still squiggling it though, and not where the hair, just like before, not where it goes into the ear. Allowing it to squiggle though. And then over here would be more on the hair tips than the middle, because of how the light source has changed. But I'm still kind of not doing it as much as I did over here. A few spots that are brighter creates different, you know, draw to the eye, but otherwise. And then we can taper off how dark this is if we wanted to, right? Like I can push small light pin pressure up against the ear so it's not as much of a stark contrast as it currently is. Very easy to taper that back down. I wouldn't put full pin pressure, but I can at least temper off what we've done. Okay. So, we can do the eyes. Okay. I'm just, sorry, I was looking at how I'd drawn them. And I think I need to fix the left side first real fast. There's a weird gap here where it was shadowed and I didn't quite come over in a way that made total sense. Right, it's a case where, you know, on one side it wouldn't matter On the inside on both of these it wouldn't matter, but on the outside the eye is kind of bulging out, so there would be some amount of needing to keep that nice and clean. Did I already? Yeah, okay. Alright, so we're going to go back to the white, and I'm going to do a couple things. First I'm going to take the white, and I'm just going to kind of go not all the way on the edge, but close, and just do kind of a narrow line that I'm going to taper off as we come underneath. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, where it's much stronger on the top, and then tapers off significantly once it comes to the other side. Okay. And then I'm going to fix my line. Then I'm going to draw like a little teardrop shape, right? So a little kind of teardrop here that is angled like the eye, right? You have that little bit of an angle happening to it. Make it nice and solid. And then on this side, same thing but a different angle, because we're at a different angle. Over more. And just take out that little divot, and I'm actually going to pull you over more as a result. Okay, fine. Okay, now, final thing I'm going to do with the eyes is take the lasso tool, and I'm going to mimic hair coming in front of it, right? So we're going to have hair coming up, pushing in. I'm going to erase that out, and then I'm going to do another layer, because that'll have me going at different angles, which will make it look more realistic. Right? So now you have the hair blocking it, which makes that one smaller, which is ideal. Okay, and then the final thing we're going to do for this rabbit is adding whiskers. Whiskers are relatively easy. Just draw at the shoulder, so you're going to just sort of be drawing out of this section here, right? I'm just going to draw at the shoulder and make some lines. It's just kind of a swoop, coming all the way underneath. Now, then you kind of, you want them to bunch up, otherwise it won't look natural. You can wobble them, but I try not to a lot. This is light pin pressure, right? So I don't do a lot of pressure when I'm doing this, although I can add up and build it up if I want to. And then whatever you do on one side, you do on the other. So if I have a lot coming up, over, down, I need to mimic that, right? Bringing it down, shortening up those strokes. I'm having a lot coming down here. Still drawing at that shoulder. Still with that light pin pressure. And there we go. There's our rabbit. Alright, so that's how you draw a rabbit. I hope that was helpful. In the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.